Well, could anything have been done? This is the question being asked to prevent the floods. Tim Dawe is Principal Engineer on Drainage and Flood Risk Assessment at the consultancy firm JMP and joins me now from Birmingham. Tim, thanks for joining us. What's your thought on this when people are looking at flood defences and things and saying, well, you know, if only they'd been higher, if only they'd been more extensive? What's your take?
It's particularly acute in Cumbria again, since they were badly flooded back in 2009. New defences were built, and now we've seen those same new defences overwhelmed. Unfortunately, we've also seen scales of rainfall that have been literally off the top of the end of the scale in terms of their severity, and they've just been the bigger flood that these new defences still could not cope with.
I'm just wondering, given what ministers are saying today, Tim, just in terms of the fact that they say, look, we've put some of these defences in, they've been very efficient, actually, over the last 3 or 4 years. They have prevented problems. This was exceptional. This is record-breaking. In effect, it's unfair, maybe, to criticise on this level. What's your reading of that?
It's an entirely fair point. If those defences had not been there, the damage and the extent of flooding that we've seen over the past few days would have been far, far worse. However, you've also got to look at the dislocation that this has put on the families and the businesses that have been affected. And if we can't defend ourselves from these most severe floods, we need to think of a way to stay out of their way, allow the rivers to flood as they would in such circumstances, and begin to reshape our settlements over the coming decades that moves development out of the way.
Is there any sign at all that there's the kind of political drive to do that? I mean, the government today is talking about an investigation again into the kind of patterns of weather that have caused this, and a look again at how efficient some of these defences are. But there's no suggestion of taking action as radical as the one you just mentioned.
No, it is a bit of a new thing, although the principle of managed retreat isn't so unusual when you look at coastal flooding, and it's already being considered around various parts of the United Kingdom in that respect. But in terms of river flooding and beginning to shift our familiar urban landscapes out of the way of our rivers, that is a new thing. We already, through the planning system, try and keep new development out of river and flood risk areas. But this is a new idea to start shifting our settlements to new, less at-risk parts of the country.
Interesting to talk to you, Tim. Thanks very much for joining us.
You're welcome.
Tim Dawe, Principal Engineer on Drainage and Flood Risk Assessment at JMP, and he was in Birmingham for us.